guys. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Six Sense Talk Radio. As always, this is Dave, and I am joined by the Goose and Matt. Today, got a little special something for you guys. We're actually going to put our big boy pants on and talk about some shit that you may want to know. These subject we're going to talk about today is something that all three of us know nothing about because we have none of it. So we decided to bring in somebody that's been a mentor to me. So
you need to stop telling people that, Dave. You're making me look bad.
So,
you did say you wanted us to be funny, right?
Yep.
Right. I'm going to put the disclaimer in here that John is not an expert. He just typically has good advice. So figured we'd impart that. So a little background. John and I met. I was working at a place called The Jungle Bar and Grill in Lake Dallas, Texas, and I was a bartender and met John, got each other in trouble for a few months, and he's been kind of my mentor since then. As far as, whenever I think about making a move or something that I need to do, I typically go to him. So that's why I figured we'd get him on today. So, John, can I say that you used to be a financial advisor?
You can.
Okay. John used to be a financial advisor. So
Right.
what I figured I would do for you knuckleheads out there is give you some startup knowledge. Because myself, I never had anybody to kind of tell me, okay, this is what you need to not be doing with your money. This is what you should be doing with your money. Give a little background on yourself, how you got into the finance game and what it's done for you.
Well, I joined the financial planning world at the whopping age of 23, and went to started with a company called Primerica that was owned by Citigroup. A lot of people have probably heard of them. It's a network marketing finance company. Leveraged them to get all my licenses because that was kind of the easiest way to do it. And then from there, parlayed it into going to work directly with Citigroup at one point, and then spinning off and having my own company. Since then, I had sold my business, left that industry, and the reason you have to say I used to be a financial advisor is because I've since let all my licenses expire. So all of this advice needs to be taken with the understanding that I haven't been licensed for many years.
Good. I've never been licensed at anything, so I get it. So I guess you have, a slight disadvantage because most people are not thinking about their financial future at 23. Hell, I don't think that I started thinking of mine till like last week sometime. So what would be your advice to any 25-year-old early, going into the 30s about, building wealth and where they need to start their future off?
Well, I can say that the number one catalyst to preventing you from building wealth is debt. So I'd say be very careful how you acquire debt. Credit cards being the worst of the bunch. Those are what they call revolving debt, and they operate very differently than like a standard loan. So the reason they call credit cards revolving credit is they're set up on a loan that renews every month. So you never get to pay the loan off, essentially. And so what that means really from a financial perspective is most loans are set up on what they call a rule of 50-25. That means that halfway through your loan, you've paid off 25% of what you owe. And the banks and stuff do that. They front load all the interest onto the loans so that they get their money first. So what happens with revolving credit is that loan starts over every month so that you never get to a point where you're paying more principal than you are interest, which is what makes credit cards so bad.
I guess avoiding them altogether, because I know it's like a big thing, right? You send your kid off to college or public school with a credit card and tell them, don't use this in case of emergencies. And I know, Mac, you've used what was it, your first divorce, where you used your credit card to pay off hookers?
Yeah, it got pretty expensive pretty quick.
So if there were just, obviously not getting a credit card, that's one that's kind of against the grain as to what everybody else is told. But if you could just say, 2 or 3 things that here are the staples of building a financial future, what do you think those would be?
I would say build a nest egg. have 3 to 6 months worth of your bills and savings that's readily available. Pay yourself first, so then save for your other things like retirement. Um, on top of that, and put your money where it's gonna, pay you back. Most people have a 401k or something that matches. I would absolutely max out those until they match, as much as they match, I should say. And avoid debt. I mean, those would probably be the three biggest things. Have a nest egg, save for your future first, and avoid debt.
I tell you, so I know I've mentioned this a couple of times, but Tuesday was my last day with the company that I was working with. And my first thought was, I'm going to have to get back on the street corner, like quick. And then I realized I was fat, which was my second thought. I knew that wasn't going to happen. So quickly, I just, I kind of realized that, I was going to be okay because I've done, some of these things that we've talked about. I know earlier in the year, we kind of went over these same things, you and I, John, about my kind of personal situation. So because of that advice, I most definitely was able to, work on this full time. I think we've made a whole 30 cents on 6 Cents Talk Radio. So yeah,
nice.
we're
so you're not charging by the pound, is what you're saying?
No.
Zing!
No, and I'm not charging by the
that's not financial
either.
advice right there. Charge by the pound. We got it.
All right, so no, I need to either charge by the pound and not charge by the inch. Got it. So, have either of you guys read Millionaire Next Door?
I can't read.
No.
I have.
That's right. Goose can't read.
Pictures?
So John would actually turn me on to that book. Yeah, I highly recommend it. Are there any others that you would recommend there, Mr. Little?
Rich Dad Poor Dad's always a good one. There's some good lessons in that. It's the story of okay, so it's a story of a gentleman named Robert Kiyosaki, and he talks about lessons he learned from his real dad, who he considers his poor dad, and from his friend's dad, who was his rich dad, and kind of how they saw the world differently. And that's always a good one because there's some sound financial advice in that as well.
I did listen to that one. Goose, you said you had some questions for John, right?
Yeah, well, I'm 34. I've gone through a lot of different financial changes and things in the last few years, as far as being married, going through divorce, all the financial responsibility that's brought on, which I'm still going to pay off until the end of time. And you gave a couple of building blocks as to how to secure your future, how to build towards that. But if you start small and you give some of these kids advice, like I was in the Marine Corps for X amount of years, and we always skipped the financial classes. They didn't really give us any great financial classes at the beginning of our careers. But budget was always the big one, and create a budget. And my question to you is you're 25 going on 30 what are some of the things, how much wiggle room do you offer yourself in a budget in case of emergencies? Is there like a debt to income ratio you want to try and strive for, as far as as you're building yourself up, as you're getting yourself out of these debts that you put yourself in already? If you're not starting from the beginning, following your building blocks, and you're already in a hole, what are some of the things you can do, small potatoes, to kind of get going?
That was the longest question ever.
Well, so from
setting, buddy. Please don't contributing. Why don't you have your kid ask a question?
Well, from the standpoint of setting a budget, that's a very personal question. From the standpoint of everybody's financial situation is a little bit different. I wouldn't say that there's a certain percentage, because if you're only making $10,000 a year, it really doesn't matter. You're probably not even making the ends meet as it stands. And so I'd say that's kind of on an individual basis. But as far as how to dig your way out of a hole, a lot of people, when they have debt, they like to apply a little bit of extra to all of their debts that they owe. My advice would be to take the one that is either got the highest interest rate or the one that has the most impact on you monthly, and that you can pay off quickly, and put all of your extra money towards paying that one off. Then once you pay that off, take everything you were paying to that, roll it to the next one, and continue that cycle until you're debt free.
Okay, and I understand that. Do you suggest focusing with the extra money or with your overages on the debt first and foremost, or kicking back a little bit also into savings, or
No, I
just
would
using
absolutely.
everything we can towards.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I would
So
absolutely
it's cool.
build a nest egg first, because if
Right.
all
I
you're doing is
gotta
paying off,
get on that.
well, if all you're doing is paying off your debt, and something happens, like it always does, you blow a tire, car accident, ticket, whatever the case may be,
Divorce.
you aren't able to, get out of debt at that point, because then you're going to put it back on your credit card or whatever. So
Right.
having the ability to have a little bit of cushion is really key in that scenario.
I found that if you have terrible enough credit, you won't even get approved for credit cards. So that's a real big help.
Well, and one thing I will say about building that nest egg, the other thing I would say is don't do it in the same bank account or even at the same bank necessarily that you keep your checking account. I would recommend doing one of the online. Fidelity has one, Capital 360 bought ING. And the reason I say that is it's a little harder to get to that money. You have to transfer it to your account. It takes a little bit of time, kind of makes you think about it before you go blow it on something, on a whim.
What do you got, Mac?
Mac, you got anything other than just sitting there looking stupid?
Well, I was letting you guys ask your long 45-minute questions. John, I think we're at our age, right at this point, is right where you kind of lock down a career, unless you got fired last week, and you really should be looking to the future. I do have some of those things. I went and saw somebody like yourself, so I could make sure that was set. But my question to you is when is the right time? Is there a specific age that, as a financial advisor, you would look at somebody and say, hey, this is when you should be investing? And if you're looking for a financial advisor, what are you looking for in one? What should they look for?
So I'll start with the first question. When should you start? As early as possible. We used to give an example that if at age 18, someone started putting $2,000 a year away every year for 7 years, and then they stopped after those 7 years, and someone else picked up at that point and started putting that same $2,000 away for the rest of the time they worked until they were 65. So they started at 24 or 25 and saved out till they were 65 and retired. The person who put the $2,000 away for the first 7 years ends up with more money. So the reason that is there's something called the time value of money. Money continues to grow. So the longer it's there, as long as it's invested well, the earlier the better. And it doesn't matter how much, save what you can. If you can only put $25 a week away or $25 a month away, do that and do it as early as possible. To answer your second question, what do you look for in a financial advisor? That's a tough one, because that's like asking somebody, what do you look for in a doctor? If you don't have a medical degree, it's really hard to know if they do a good job or not. And so the things I'll tell you is when it comes to financial advisors, they really get paid typically in one of two ways. They're either paid based on a fee. So they basically just charge you an upfront fee in order to put your plan together. And the other way is they get paid on commission. So they put the plan together and they don't get paid really until they sell you something. And so in either of those scenarios, you kind of have to be careful. The person who's putting the plan together really has no vested interest or way to help you go find those investments. And the person who's trying to sell you something may sell you what's best for them and not for yourself. And so I would say talk to people that have used them. Referrals are usually a pretty good way. I would say look for somebody that is not just licensed to sell you insurance or something like that, but find somebody who's got a certified financial planner designation or something along those lines. Right on.
So John, we appreciate you talking to us. And I know I appreciate any time that you help me out, because I would most definitely be freaking out if I hadn't used some of the knowledge that you've dropped on me. So again, thanks for taking the time to be on here and talk to us. And hopefully we may even change somebody's life today.
I hope so. Anything that helps somebody is a good thing.
Did you guys see the story about the guy that didn't show up to work for 6 years and like just kept collecting paychecks. And then they didn't discover that he wasn't working until he won an award for something. Like, that guy hasn't been around for 6 years. And so now they're pissed because they've been paying this guy for going to work for the last 6 years, and it's a government job too.
Oh man, well they could take all that money back then.
Yeah, so he just stopped going to work, and then I guess they just never stopped paying him. So
I like his style.
Yeah.
But on better news, did you hear about how Peyton Manning teabagged a trainer back in the day?
I did. He's also settled with her out of court a couple times, I saw.
Yeah. So Dave, this would be some shit that you would expect a guy like J.J. Watt to do, right? Because he seems like that typical like jock, which he's a great guy. And then you see Peyton Manning nowadays, he's like very subtle, and he wouldn't seem like that kind of dude. But she was massaging his calf apparently. It had allegedly, by the way. And he literally pulled his junk out and laid it on her forehead. He's like, there you go. Thanks. I needed a rest that there, you know?
No kidding. So that was like the trainer just came out and said, hey, this was what happened?
Well, from what I understand.
No. There's multiple counts of, like 6 or some counts of sexual style misconduct or something like that at the University of Tennessee, dating back X amount of years, and Peyton Manning is one named in it. And she came out a couple, 10 some odd years ago and mentioned it, and then she settled out of court, or they just settled it somewhere. And then he referenced her in a book or something, and then she tried to sue him for defamation again, and then he paid her off or told her off again. And now she's trying to bring it up yet again, so I don't know. She's come back for more in the wake of his career ending or whatever the case may be. I think it's kind of garbage. If it was a big issue, that they should have, if it was any truth to it, then maybe they should have pressed the issue back then instead of waiting around for him to get even more rich.
Let's just say what nobody wants to say, though, Eli. She should be happy that Hall of Fame 2-time Super Bowl champion laid his junk on her forehead.
My gosh, that's like saying Ray Rice's wife deserves to be punched in the face if she's married to an NFL superstar.
And on that note, we are going to get out of here. Appreciate you taking the time to listen to us today. As always, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe. That's 6 Cents Talk Radio. That's where we post everything. You can also find links to YouTube on our Facebook page, 6 Cents Talk Radio. We appreciate you, again, listening to us. And leave us some feedback. Give us a like. And we hope to hear from you.